Cam asked the question, does Tacitus prove that Jesus existed? He doesn't prove that Jesus existed, nor does that prove, even if it did prove that he existed, it doesn't prove all the miracles. It doesn't prove that he's the Son of God. It doesn't prove that you need to go through Jesus in order to be with God. Tacitus is an interesting character because he wasn't born until 56 AD, CE, Common Era. He was born 7 years after the fire. He was about 7 years old when the fires of Rome occurred. No doubt he heard stories that other people told about the fire. And we know how people exaggerate. But he came into power under the Flavian dynasty. We know that one of the aspects of the Flavian dynasty, which many scholars do not take into account, especially Christian scholars, they want to just take Tacitus at face value, is that one of the purposes and the goals of the Flavian dynasty was to discredit the Julio-Claudian dynasty. You see, Vespasian he became emperor after the Senate disposed of Nero, the last Claudio Julian. In doing so, he rewrote the story. We know that Vespasian wanted to make a docile form of Judaism so that the Jewish revolts would stop happening around the Roman Empire. He wrote about horrific tortures that Christians suffered under the Julio-Claudians, further to discredit the dynasty of the Julio-Claudians. Similar to how when you get a new president in, if they're Republican, they're going to discredit the Democrats. If they're a Democrat, they're going to discredit the Republicans. So there's no different in that time. The only difference is that the people did not have the ability to go back and research the information. The people did not have a voice unless they was en masse. No scholar can validate where Tacitus got any of his information. There are no reference points. You can go look up everything that I talk about, everything that I tell you, whether I give you a reference or not. Back in those days, you could not. Back in those days, if you did, you would probably get murdered for doing so, for challenging someone who was a governor. So did Christians begin to exist? Sure. But now Titus didn't write about Christians until there was no one around who could discredit it. He didn't start writing about Christians until around 100 CE. By this time frame, anybody who would have walked around, been with Jesus or anything of the sort would have been dead. So there was no one to challenge him. He didn't even write when other historians had an ability to challenge him because he wanted to make sure that what he wrote was unencumbered. So does he prove Jesus? Possibly. Does that prove that Jesus did and is who he say he is? Absolutely not. Are there political wranglings around it? There absolutely is. And that's the part you have to look for.